How the 16-team 4-4-2-2-1-3 format for the college football playoff would impact the field. Let's take a look for 2024 and a possibility for 2025 right here at the Voice of College Football. Please like the video and subscribe. If expanded to 16 in 2024 and simply going by the rankings by the CFP committee, this is what it would have looked like. Oregon at number 1, Georgia 2, Texas 3, Penn State at 4. 5 is Notre Dame, 6 Ohio State, 7 Tennessee, 8 Indiana, followed by Boise State, SMU, Alabama, of course, did not make the playoff, even though they were number 11 in the country because Arizona State took a spot. Then you had Miami, Ole Miss, South Carolina at number 15, Clemson at number 16. And then if we go by the 4-4-2-2-1-3 model, the Big Ten hits its mark with 4 entries: Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, and Indiana. The SEC would have had 6 teams in. Hold that thought. Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Bama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. Arizona State makes it from the Big 12 as the champion at number 12. And the ACC, 3 teams in the field. SMU at number 10, Miami at 13, and Clemson, the champion of the league, actually the lowest of the 3 teams. Boise State at number 9. Out of the Mountain West is the Group of 5 rep, and of course Notre Dame at number 5. But let's keep in mind, the Big 12 only has 1 rep from 2024, Arizona State. They need 2. So actually, while we are projecting this to be a power play, and it is by the Big 10 and the SEC, trying to protect their interests in regards to scheduling difficult games both inside and outside the conference while protecting their 4 playoff entries in 2024, this would have helped the Big 12 because only Arizona State would have made the field if you go strictly by the rankings. So we've got to force a second team from the Big 12 into the field. That's number 17, BYU. They jump up to number 16. Out goes not Clemson at number 16. Of course, they won a conference championship. South Carolina at number 15 gets screwed. They're out. Your first-round playoff games, if played on site, look like this. BYU at Oregon, the 1-16 matchup. Clemson at Georgia. They had played, of course, earlier in the season at the Georgia Dome, and Georgia won big 34-3. Ole Miss at Texas, interesting matchup in a 3-14 game. Miami at Penn State. Arizona State at Notre Dame. Bama at Ohio State. Huge brand game there in the 6-11 matchup. SMU and Tennessee and Knoxville. Boise State would have traveled to Indiana to take on the Hoosiers as the 8-9 game. And that's if we strictly go by the rankings of the CFP. If we give preference to conference champions, as is the case in the 12-team playoff, with the 4 highest conference champions being seeded 1 through 4, and we gave way to the conference champions in this 16-team field, it would have looked like this in 2024. Oregon is the Big Ten champ, Georgia as the SEC champion. Boise State goes all the way from 9 up to 3, as they did, of course, in 2024. Arizona State likewise from number 12 up to number 4. Now, Clemson would have vaulted from whether that's number 16 in the actual rankings or number 15 in the adjusted rankings when South Carolina got knocked out, vaults all the way up to number 5 as a conference champion, and then everybody else goes in line. But Texas drops to 6, Penn State to 7, Notre Dame 8. Ohio State would have to play a road game. Number 9, Tennessee, Indiana, SMU, Bama, Miami, Ole Miss, and BYU, with the first-round playoff games looking like this. Still Oregon, BYU, but now we've got an Ole Miss matchup against Georgia. The Rebels beat Georgia by 18 points in Oxford, but they would have to get the rematch in Athens in a 2-15 matchup. Miami at Boise State, so the Hurricanes having to travel all the way to the upper Northwest to play in the cold in Boise on the blue carpet. Bama at Arizona State, SMU at Clemson, a rematch of the ACC championship game as they would play right away again. Indiana at Texas. Tennessee taking on Penn State in a 7-10 matchup, in Ohio State at Notre Dame. The eventual national championship game would have been played in the first round as the Buckeyes were a 9 seed and would have to go to South Bend. There we see 2024 would have played out 2 different ways depending on your model. 1 through 16 based on the rankings, and simply no adjustment based on conference championships. And then, of course, the conference champions being elevated to the top seedings. All right, let's look at 2025. And this is just a fun little deal right here where we take ESPN's post-spring practice rankings and we apply them to the college football season and see, again, how does 442213 impact what the rankings, and does anybody get screwed, and does anybody get elevated past number 16 in the country into the college football playoff field of 16? Okay, the rankings preseason according to ESPN. Penn State at number 1, followed by Clemson, Texas, Georgia, Ohio State, rounding out the top 5. LSU at 6, Notre Dame, Oregon, Bama, BYU, Illinois, and Arizona State. And then all things being equal, the final 4 teams here would not make the 12-team field. South Carolina, Iowa State, SMU, and Texas Tech. Now let's check out the conferences to make sure that the requirements are met. 4 out of the Big Ten, there they are: Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, Illinois. The SEC gets in at least 4, but there's 5 there with Texas, Georgia, LSU, Bama, and South Carolina at number 13. Of course, they got screwed out of a spot despite being in the top 16 in 2024. There we've got the Big 12 with actually 4 out of the top 16 teams in the country based on the ESPN projections: BYU, Arizona State, Iowa State, and Texas Tech. Then we've got Clemson and SMU out of the ACC. So we've got no G5 team in the top 16 in America. So whoever that would be, Boise State, whoever that would be, Tulane, whomever. So give a G5 team a spot. And then we got Notre Dame at number 7. So what happens? The Big 12, 4 teams in the playoffs, but they've got the lowest seed as an at-large that would get knocked out by the G5. So bye-bye Texas Tech. You poured in all that NIL money to make the college football playoff, and you basically did in a sense, but you get knocked out by the G5 on the technicality of the 4-4-2-2-1-3 model. Let's look at the playoff matchups. Just going by the rankings, the G5 team at number 16 goes to Happy Valley to take on Penn State. SMU at Clemson. Another rematch of the ACC championship game there, potentially. You figure if these are the 2 teams that make it out of the ACC, they would have played in the championship game, and then they play in the first round again. Iowa State at Texas, former Big 12 matchup. South Carolina at Georgia, 2 SEC teams going at it in the first round. Arizona State at Ohio State, a rematch of the 1997 Rose Bowl. Illinois at LSU, that's a 6-11 matchup, a replay and rematch of the 2002 Sugar Bowl. BYU at Notre Dame, 7-10 matchup in South Bend, and Bama would have to travel to Oregon. How about that matchup? Alabama playing at Autzen Stadium, something that we wanted to see a number of times in regards to Bama and Oregon hooking up when Chip Kelly was there and the Ducks were on their run around 2010 to 2012. Now, if we give preference to the conference champions, you elevate BYU from number 10 all the way up to number 4. You've got the group of 5 at number 5. So you got the 5 conference champions up top. And then everybody else falls in line and drops a few notches. Georgia, Ohio State, LSU all drop a couple places, as does Notre Dame, Oregon, Bama. There you've got Illinois, Arizona State, South Carolina, Iowa State, and SMU. So it matches up like this. This one looks awfully familiar. SMU at Penn State. We've seen that before. We've also seen Iowa State and Clemson in a recent postseason matchup at the Cheez-It Bowl. South Carolina, number 14, taking on SEC member Texas at number 3. Arizona State at BYU. So we've got a number of conference matchups there. BYU and Arizona State would have most likely just played in the Big 12 championship game and then turn around and play in the first round. We're going to have this happen. It's not necessarily the most favorable, or what we would like to see is that 2 teams would play in a conference championship game and turn around and play again. Illinois at number 12, they get the long straw because they get to play the group of 5 team, but they've got to go on the road. Bama, Georgia, another in-conference matchup, as is Oregon, Ohio State, the 7-10 matchup in Columbus. Notre Dame takes on LSU as the 8-9 matchup in Death Valley. Interesting little exercise there. The 16-team playoff definitely has some flaws. The first and foremost flaw, and the one that I have much contention with, would be just let the playoff committee, even though I'm not in favor of one, I want an objective college football playoff system that I've unveiled many times and will again. I want the records and the performance on the field to dictate who makes the playoffs, not a committee. But if we do have a committee and if they're doing their jobs, let them do their jobs. Don't dictate to them that the Big Ten has to have 4 teams and the SEC 4. No, you simply let the games play out and then determine who are the 16 worthy teams to make the playoffs. And we're going to have a situation as we would have if we go back prior to 2024, in which we're really reaching to number 20, 21, 22 in the country to bring them up to the top 16 to fill out the requisite requirement entries for these leagues. Comments down below, folks, right here at the Voice of College Football. Please like and subscribe. See you next time.